Okay, members, we are now in open session. Just to remind you that we are being broadcast online and throughout Parliament Building, so just welcome anybody who is joining us online. I see Carol is there now. Welcome, Carol. Just to ask you to make sure your phones are muted and to remember that there is no recording or photography of the meeting allowed. I'm just going to proceed with the agenda. Okay, members, we have 3 apologies. We've got Sinead, Philip and Claire. I think everybody else is accounted for. Okay, thank you. Any declarations of interest over and above the usual that are on record? No? Okay, thank you. So chairperson's business then. So members, I just want to say a few words about the recent deaths, with the one in Derry and then one in Enniskillen recently, just adding to the long list of women who've lost their lives in Northern Ireland. And obviously we have a responsibility in this committee to be looking at the delivery of the End of Violence Against Women and Girls strategic framework. So I just want to formally, put on record my condolences to the families. I'm sure they're just absolutely devastated, and their friends and their colleagues. We had an oral briefing from departmental officials on the 4th of March, and they outlined the forthcoming delivery plan for 2026-28, that it will build on the momentum and progress established through the first delivery plan, and full details of all the key actions of the next delivery plan will be available once it's approved by the executive, and a formal launch will then be expected with delivery commencing from the 1st of April. So does anybody want to say anything else until we maybe look at some actions? Please go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, Chair, no, just to say, it's just horrific. It really is horrific, and unfortunately it feels like it's becoming the norm, which is absolutely scandalous. But I suppose I did hear some commentary from John Boucher today as well about the ability of the PSNI to actually deal with the EVOG issues, and I'm just very aware it's very, very cross-departmental, yes, and the pressures even on communities in terms of the whole housing. I mean, we'll all have dealt with constituents, I certainly have very recently, of people placed in these really precarious positions, and if we are not able to support them, whether that's through policing or whether that's through housing accommodation supports, the support to the voluntary and community sector, I just think there's so much there that needs attention. So I'm not sure what we do, but we certainly need to do something more to concentrate minds on this issue. But yes, okay, as you do, my condolences to the families affected. It's just horrific to see yet more deaths of young women. It's just horrendous.
Thank you, Pam. Tim and Timothy, and then I'll call in Carol, please.
Thanks very much, Chair, and just joining yourself and the rest of the members and offering our condolences to the families. It's terrible times we're living in, and there's no getting away from that 30 women have lost their lives since 2020. We have a strategy. The strategy is, now, I believe, resourced well, but the onus is on this committee to ensure that the money is going to the right places, to ensure that this is the last generation that has to experience and live through this. I have said in this committee, and I've said in the chamber, that I believe we need to be more targeted in our interventions and looking at, the young. We've heard it from the Youth Council when they came here about what they have experienced coming up through school. And I believe we need to put a focus on, and the money that has been allocated to this strategy, on fighting this in schools, to ensure that the next generation coming up are not displaying the same behaviours as this generation is doing. It's something that seriously worries me, and it's something we need to try and get a grip of ASAP.
Okay, thank you. Carol, please. Then Stuart.
So I agree with yourself and Pam and Timothy, but I do think, like this morning, for example, I was with a constituent who has had to go. She lives in North Belfast, and she's been offered temporary accommodation in Portadown, and she can't take it because her kids are at school and they're teenagers. So a couple of things. We did speak one stage about doing a joint meeting with Justice. I think because the strategy is cross-cutting, obviously TEO lead it, but I do think we need to look at a couple of items. So, for example, I do think we need to look at restoring intimidation points for women or men, but mostly women that we're talking about here, that literally feel trapped because they've nowhere to go. So that would be something like, and I know the housing system was abused by people using intimidation points, but when it comes to cases like this, the verification is normally through the PSNI, Women's Aid, and even elected reps, and I think we need to look at that. Look, every department has big challenges with their budget, but the PSNI have some very good robust processes, but they can only bring people so far. And then when you get to court, it's a different day's crack. So this morning, somebody got a non-mull order. They have to go back in 6 weeks' time. They have to go into the dock. They have to talk about the impact of violence or coercion control. And that's not something that any department, and most times they'll get it, but often they don't. So what I'm asking is that we seriously ask the likes of communities, we ask justice to come up with a couple of practical ideas in addition to what we're already doing that will help women and girls, but certainly women and anyone fleeing or living with domestic violence or coercion control, just practical steps that we can do in addition to what we're already doing, because there's Palm's right, it's almost like this is becoming the norm. And none of us, regardless of all our political differences, are just happy to kind of let things sit. I think we're all scratching our heads to see what else we can do. So I'm just respectfully throwing that out there.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. Please, Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And like everybody, heartfelt concern and sadness and condolences for those that have been suffering and have these incidents have occurred, not just in the last few days, but over many years. I think, I really feel that there's a sense of failure about the strategy, because it's obviously not pushing through, because these events are continuing to happen. And it is, as others have said, it's a cross-cutting issue. It starts right from day one and even long before that. It's not just, it's a health issue, it's an education issue, it's a justice issue. It cuts across all of the business of this Assembly and our society here in Northern Ireland. And I don't know how many conferences or events or statements that we need about this, but clearly what we're doing is not cutting through, and it needs to. And I think we urgently need to seek some sort of a re-examination as to why we are continuing to fail women and girls with this strategy.
Anya, do you want to add anything to
Yeah, well,
your constituents?
just listen to those comments, Chair. Obviously, we had a situation in my own constituency a number of weeks back with young Ellie Leonard. Obviously, last summer in Maguire's Bridge with Vanessa White and her two young children. Previous to that, we had the death of Connie Leonard, and even from Carol's remarks, I suppose we are kind of sitting around thinking to ourselves, where has the strategy maybe went wrong to date? Why is there no deterrence? I suppose because when you look at the incidents that have happened, and again, I don't want to get into the fine minutiae of sentence in itself, but it is quite clear that men have continued and will continue to act in such ways. Could we possibly, and Carol's piece around a bit of cross-departmental work with justice, could we possibly write to other departments, whether it be education and justice, just to see exactly, even statistics post 2022 when the, what do you call the act that was brought in from justice?
Domestic Abuse
Yes.
Act, yeah.
Some stats just around exactly how many prosecutions have been sought. Because look, I know every constituency is impacted by this, but when you're hearing about deaths, literally on a week on week basis, it does kind of make you sit back as a legislator anyway and think, what has actually been achieved?
Well, I suppose to be fair to the Executive Office, and you don't usually hear me say those words, look, their delivery plan's only a year old, so I think that a lot of this stuff is generational and people being brought up in households where this has been the norm. So I think that, anyway, I've said it. So Pam, I didn't see that stuff about the PSNI, so I wonder should we maybe chase up on that, about what the police are doing in this space. Go ahead, and then have another suggestion.
I think that would be good to do that. I mean, I think clearly the strategy, it's attitudinal change. It was never going to be overnight. We understand that. So that good work has to continue because it's the future-proofing that you're doing now. But clearly there are serious issues today, and I'm just wondering in terms of plugging those gaps we need to speak to. I think actually the PSNI would be a good starting point for us because they are literally at the forefront of this, and I think they will possibly be able to point us towards the gaps as they see them, as what's needed in order to actually make women and girls safe when they get into this crisis point. Clearly you want to get in underneath and stop it happening in the first place, but that is going to be a piece of work that's going to take a considerable length of time.
Thank you, Pam. Timothy, and then Anya, and then
Just
I want
quickly,
to
something that has been highlighted over the last number of days is that core costs aren't being covered for some of those on the front line dealing with the aftermath of domestic violence, and that's something I think we need to look at. When we have this pot of money, are we using it to the best outcome? And I would rather be proactive rather than reactive. But if you have groups coming forward and saying that, listen, we're dealing with this on a daily basis, we're struggling with our core costs, well, is it not better that we start to look at, well, what are them core costs? Should the Department of Health be funding them, or is there money within this strategy that can go to meet them core costs to ensure that when something does happen, that we have agencies in place that can step in and try and minimise the devastation that is taking place in our communities?
Okay, hopefully the clerk and the assistant clerk are taking a note of this because I'm sort of formulating a way forward in my head. Anya, did you want back in?
Yeah, just off the back of Pam's
Carol.
point, Chair, with even in terms of the PSNA, if we do have them in for a briefing just on this stuff, it would be good to get a feel from them, because I know I've spoke with a few agencies in my own constituency regarding some of these previous cases, and they have raised the fact that there seems to be a breakdown of communication on a cross-agency basis between PSNA, other statutory agencies, as well as external agencies. So I think it would be good to even open up that conversation as well.
Okay, thank you. Carol, please go ahead.
So already we've got TEO, we've got the PSNI, we've got Health, who should be paying for Women's Aid and those organisations, in my view, and we've got communities. So even if we at the end would just pull together the actions, see the other thing, and I know it's just a bit left field, but the pressure on women is such that, say for example, and the PSNI will confirm this, if they're called to a home or someone rang in to get someone out to someone's home and there's evidence that children live there, see if they're called back again a second time, social services are automatically involved because it's a safeguarding issue. So the pressure on women to get up and go is actually massive. It's worse now than what it was 20 years ago, and they've nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So I do think, I don't want to say the strategy's failed. I think the strategy is what it is in terms of future proofing. But I do think we need to have almost, dare I say it, like a task force on ending domestic violence or violence in the home. Because just to reduce it to this strategy, I think is actually not reflective of what's happening or what's happened from 2020. So I think we need to look at the strategy, accept it for what it is, change it where we can, but this is much bigger than this strategy, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay. Did you want back in? Because I'm going
No, I didn't want to prolong it, Chair, but just to say that, we could do all these things and set up all these things, but the core services need to be there, and that's in terms of ensuring you have enough place on the ground to actually be able to physically cope with the influx. In terms of housing, when Carol touched on the points issue, it doesn't matter how many points you have if there's no houses, if there's no temporary accommodation, it doesn't matter where you are on that list. If there is no availability, there's no availability. So that's dealing with the actual housing strategy, making sure that we're building enough houses to be able to house people in general. So I think that there's core pieces of work that need to be done by this assembly. That's not necessarily for this committee, but I do think we should have a think in the background about, you know, what further we can look at.
Okay, so the Assistant Clerk just reminded me we have got a letter to the Executive Office with some questions around the funding that's been allocated, etc. So I was on an International Women's Day panel at Queen's recently there, and actually one of the audience members is working on the academic project around shoulders, knees and toes. I think that's the one, wasn't it? I think bystander training. So I'm wondering, maybe after Easter, we've obviously got our strategic away day in this room that I keep calling it. But we can maybe be looking at some of the panels to set up maybe some of the recipients of the grants under the strategic framework, but also get the likes of Women's Aid back and have a panel with the large organisations, the 8 that are not all 8, but the ones that are in the receipt of the big grants. But I had a really horrendous situation on Saturday. I volunteer as an umpire, and I had an awful experience. Now I have put in a complaint, and it was. And my parting gesture to this man was, we do not need male aggression in women's sport, okay? So I want to know what the sporting bodies are doing about men volunteering in women's spaces when there are young women about, and they use this as a way of exerting their male dominance. Because I have reflected since Saturday how many times in female sport I have seen male umpires and male coaches being so aggressive. I then went and watched my son, who's 26, play football later, and I can tell you, the referee doesn't speak to those men on the pitch. They do not speak to them the way that I've seen males speak to females in women's sport. So I want to know what the sporting bodies are doing, and I'm happy to work with you after, so we can get a list of them. Because if men are coming into women's spaces, displaying that attitude, like sort of showing their male prowess, then I want to know what they're going to do about it to protect women and girls from witnessing that type of behaviour. Okay. I'm very angry about what happened on Saturday, I have to say, and if it hadn't been me, some other women would have been subjected to what I was subjected to, but people know I'm no shrinking violet. So I'm going to move on, members, and I'm going to ask the Assistant Clerk to go through what we've agreed in terms of actions. Thank you. Or do you want to do it?
I'm happy to do that.
Okay, go ahead,
yes,
sorry.
Chair. So I have a list here of departments for engagement, education, justice, communities and health. Members content that the committee seeks a written update on the work that they are currently doing and work that they are proposing in this space, and also the data that they've been gathering and the information they've been drawing together to inform that work.
Yep.
I think you widen out to all departments, because you could argue that DERA has a rural element to it as well.
Yeah.
So I think you just go to all the ministers' departments.
That's fine.
And then an invitation to the PSNI to provide an oral briefing, an update on the work in this space.
Yeah, I think in the past they've sort of given us a written one and then offered off the back of it, but we'll try luck with an oral one in the first instance. If not, we'll ask if they can.
Okay, and also seek some further information for them at that briefing on the sort of multi-agency and cross-agency work that they've undertaken. And then, Jay, you mentioned about at the coming up with some proposals at the planning day around forming a panel or convening representatives perhaps from some of the voluntary sector organisations that are working in this space.
I think it might be useful to have it at 2 tiers, because there is some really good frontline stuff that's going on in community centres who've just applied for the smaller grants, but then there's the larger organisations who are not just about delivery but also the policy issues that we've discussed here today, that Women's Aid around, you know, they can provide the services, but then the problem is there's no housing. So I would say maybe 2 panels, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. And would the committee look to sort of finalise names for the panels and so on at the planning day, and maybe proposals on how to run those?
I would say
panels?
I would say if we could maybe try and get a list of grant recipients from GEO, that would help inform, because we have had some here before, and it would be fair then to maybe try and make sure
reach out to councils Because if they're the ones giving the local change
Yes.
money.
That's what I mean, just the,
Yeah,
whoever,
so-
whoever that money is ultimately
Yeah.
getting to.
Members content?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And in terms of male aggression in women's sport,
Yes.
do-
Well, I'm trying, let's look at football, let's look at rugby, GAA, hockey, any sort of team sport in that space, because if you're a coach, you have to have your safeguarding, your child protection, but there are other people on pitch side who don't necessarily have to have those things. So where are the safeguards, where's the training, and where's the support?
would it be helpful if officials gathered information for that planning day and then
Yeah.
took it
Fair
forward
enough,
from
yeah.
there on that too?
Yep.
That's all I have.
So that might even, that last one as well would be the communities one, but I think we've covered that anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else missed? No? Okay. Okay, members, we're going to move on then. So just to seek your agreement to write to the Department to ask if the Executive has approved phase 2 of the delivery plan and if preparations are in place to commence delivery as scheduled on the 1st of April. Agreed? And then just to remind you that the committee still awaits this response from the department around those issues we'd asked them about, and also, I don't think we've covered it today, but the study on attitudes to young men and boys and recorded incidents. So, okay, moving on then. Dromore Group follow-up correspondence. I'm going to refer you to pages 6 to 7 of the pack. Just to advise that the Dromore Group has emailed me following our oral evidence session with the committee on Wednesday the 11th of March this year. In the correspondence, they reiterated the need for a public inquiry into historical clerical child abuse and has asked the committee if this area could be transferred to another government department, and in the absence of progress by TEO, could an alternative government department urgently plan for and put in place the necessary building blocks to bring forward a public inquiry. So just to advise that I was also copied into an email to the junior ministers from the Dromore Group confirming a meeting which will now take place between representatives and junior ministers on the 30th of April 2026, and just to remind that the committee has written to the First and Deputy First Minister to ask that a meeting be arranged at the earliest opportunity between ministers and representatives of the interfaith clerical abuse survivors, an update on the timeline for ministers progressing the work into this in terms of research, the current status of the interdepartmental working group and the interim chair, and how this role is going to be filled going forward, and further information on the meeting between ministers and the PSNI Chief Executive regarding historical clerical child abuse. So just to advise, we are awaiting that reply, but I think just for the record, seek agreement there to note that these items are agreed to follow up the interfaith representatives of survivors on any response received regarding this issue when a reply is received. Agreed. But also, I think that can we give some clarity, go back to them in the immediate term, just to clarify that it would have to be the Executive Office that would bring forward an inquiry, because anything like that would have to go through the Executive Committee as a body anyway, just to address that issue. Okay, any issues on that? No. Okay. So then draft minutes, members, just to advise that these are on pages 9 to 17 of your pack for our meeting on the 18th of March. If members are content, these are a true reflection of the proceedings. Go ahead.
Could I raise 2 issues and matters arising out of the minutes? I can either do that now or if you want to
Okay, let me get through the matters arising and then I'll bring you in, Timothy, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so matters arising, 5.1, final press release, historical clerical childhood abuse. So I'm going to refer you to pages 19 to 21 of your pack, and just to remind that at last week's meeting the committee considered a draft press release calling on TEO to publish the research and the recommendations subject to one amendment. The final version was then agreed by members via email and published and released, just to seek your agreement to note this item. Okay, 5.3, the Open University follow-on information. I'm going to refer you to pages 22 to 23 of the pack, and just to remind that following the oral briefing from Open University last week, they have now sent us further information regarding the estimated cost of delivery for the Y Riot programme. Just to advise that while they cannot provide a single figure, they would that would fully capture the OU's investment. The Open University together with 2 committee partners submitted a Peace Plus bid for approximately £6.25 million, which, as members will be aware, was unsuccessful. In the correspondence, the Open University detailed how, if this bid had been successful, the funding would have enabled it to work with 14 community partner organisations and 34 youth work staff to expand and to deliver the Y Riot programme as a holistic and transformative youth programme to 1,440 marginalised young people across 4 years. Just to remind that following the oral briefing, the committee wrote to the Department and to the First and Deputy First Minister seeking clarity and plans for funding beyond April, including the decision regarding local growth fund allocations, alternative funding streams that may be available to mitigate that gap, and to ask what coordinated approach is being taken across departments given that this matter spans across a number of departments within the executive. Happy to note. And then finally, under this Committee for Finance views on the multi-year budget, just a reminder that the committee has received a high-level briefing from TO officials on the draft budget for the coming 3 years at our meeting on the 4th of February this year. Just to advise that the Committee for Finance recently wrote to all the statutory committees seeking information on the proposed departmental multi-year budgets, and just to seek your agreement to forward the Hansard from this session on the 4th of February to the Committee for Finance for information regarding the draft TO multi-year budget. Agreed? Agreed. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just a couple of points. So one from the minutes from last week, agenda item number 6, when we had the commissioners in front of us. So the first point that was agreed was the committee agreed to write to the Irish Language Commissioner to request a copy of the correspondence issued to Belfast Telegraph, and that was in regard to Mr Deeds saying it was a bad translation regarding comments he had made about a private citizen. I was just wanting to check to make sure that that had went. Has there been any response yet from Mr Deeds?
We've sent, but there's been no response yet.
Okay, so it's been confirmed there it has been sent. Did that go straight after the meeting then,
did,
Derek?
yes.
Yeah.
No, that's grand.
No response yet? Okay.
So in the second one, during question and answer session with Mr Deeds, he had said, when we were talking about the interview he had gave outside Parliament buildings, that he was exercising a general advice function and referred to the Assembly Commission as the public body that had requested that advice. The private individual had wrote to the Speaker's office, and the Speaker's office has come back to say he was clarifying that the event which you refer to was a performance of poetry and nursery rhymes, and it went on to say that as the comments referred to were not made during the event and no advice was requested or received, the questions specified in your correspondence do not therefore arise. So it's clear that this advice wasn't sought by the Assembly Commission. So could we go back to Mr Deeds and ask him to clarify that so the record is straight? What government department was Mr Deeds referring to when he said he was giving out advice when he was interviewed by the BBC in the steps of Parliament buildings?
Okay, I thought he was sort of saying it was like general advice, in other words, to the unionist politicians. I didn't think he was indicating that he was giving this.
He mentioned the Assembly Commission.
Okay.
And now with Mr Bryson contacting the Speaker and Mr Ramsey coming back, and I believe you were copied in correspondence from earlier today.
Maybe today, but I haven't seen anything today.
If we could have that in the committee pack for when we come back after Easter recess, which confirms that that wasn't the case. So if we could ask Mr Deeds just to clarify them comments to make sure that we have an accurate reflection and an accurate statement from him as to who he was given advice to. And if it was unionism in general, it certainly was a political threat. That's how I deemed it and that's how I perceived it, so I would like to clarify that.
Okay, so just want to set the record straight. So I personally wasn't copied into that email that you've just referred to, but it did go to the committee, and the assistant clerk has just confirmed that it was only received at lunchtime today, and that's why it has been circulated to members, but it will be in a forthcoming committee pack. But since Timothy's raised it at this meeting today, can it possibly be forwarded after the meeting then, so everybody has sight of it?
Everyone agrees that we can do
Is that okay? Got people in agreement that we can forward that to everybody so they're aware of what was in the... Agreed? Yeah.
Yeah, but just for confirmation, it will also go into the pack
Yeah.
as a matter of formal record, but it can be circulated in advance of that.
Okay, so take a step back. Tell me what your question is then. What do you want us to do? To write to Mr Deeds?
It's to write to Mr Deeds to seek clarity when he was referring to his answer he was giving guidance to. And it was Mr Deeds that mentioned the Assembly Commission.
Okay.
It now transpires that no advice was sought by the Assembly Commission. So it could have been a technical mispronunciation. It might have been another body within Stormont or another function, and it would just be good to get that clarified who he was referring to when he talked about the Assembly Commission.
Okay, so James, I think there's maybe a wee bit of work there in terms of looking at Hansard and trying to pull that out a wee bit so that whatever correspondence is then issued to the Irish Language Commissioner, it's absolutely clear what's being referred to, etc. But I wonder is there any chance that we could get permission to share the correspondence that has been sent to the committee so that he's aware of the complaint? I don't know. I just want a wee bit of transparency around
Well, if
this.
it's been sent to the committee, it would be for all committee members. So
Okay.
there should be no issue. I believe there should be no issue with that.
Okay, could
It should be put in the pack.
okay.
Original.
But maybe go back to the
The
original.
person who sent the correspondence, just to make sure they're happy for their correspondence to be shared.
Okay.
Yep, okay.
So I think the
Makes
deputy
sense.
chair's been indicated.
I was just going to say, Chair, sometimes there's confusion between exactly what the Assembly Commission is. The event, as I understand it, was the Speaker's event, and although the Speaker's the Chair of the Commission is actually the body corporate which runs the Assembly, and it may very well be that that's what he was referring to, but it's right, we should get clarification.
Okay.
I suppose regardless, Chair, this will have to come back to
Yeah.
the next meeting
Yeah.
for a fuller discussion.
That's fine. And if there's any issues that arise when we're having a look at this, we'll make sure that it's brought back to the committee.
Okay, and I'm just wondering then with recess and stuff happening then, if there's anything urgent, how will we, I don't think there'll be anything urgent, really time sensitive around this. No.
We have Prony the first week we come back.
Yeah, so we've no formal meeting the first week back, as you say, on the 15th, because we're on our visit to Prony. So the first formal meeting back is the 22nd.
So that'll be our next committee pack, basically?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. All right, members, we're content to move on then. So we're going to look at, get an oral briefing on the inquiry and redress scheme bill from departmental officials. So I'm going to seek your agreement to go into closed session. Thanks. Okay, members, we're back in open session. So we had two briefings there. We had one from the department on the inquiry, mother and baby institutions, Magdalene, Laundries and Workhouses and redress scheme bill in relation to amendments to the bill in advance of the consideration stage debate at the end of April. So we, in closed session, the committee agreed to withdraw two amendments currently tabled by ourselves, one to clause 4 and one to clause 21. Can we just have agreement in open session to that effect?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. And also the second session we had there was some legal advice from the Assembly Legal Services on the Supreme Court judgment on religious education in Northern Ireland. So we were clear that the vast majority of this does relate to the Education Committee for their own scrutiny and work going forward. But what we will try to do is reflect some of the legal advice in the equality space in our final draft inquiry into gaps in equality legislation. Okay? Agreed? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on.
Chair, sorry, can I just summarise
please, sorry.
in open session the agreements from the previous agenda item?
Oh, please, sorry.
Agenda item 6.
Apologies, go ahead.
Just so that we have those on the record.
Yes.
So the committee has agreed to seek further information from the department, and I have a list. So on the status of charities' capital and assets, and how those may relate to any potential payment process. Also around unrestricted and restricted funds and reserve funds, just for clarity on how those can interplay. And for further definition and clarification on the term fair and meaningful, particularly how it's used in the Scottish scheme. And then lastly, just some further detail around the interplay between the right, particularly to property, and competence of the bill going forward.
Okay, so just off the back of that information we've requested from the department, and then some other training we will be getting in terms of delegated legislation, there are still some, just again for the record, there are still some amendments that we haven't totally settled on, but we agreed that we would have an ad hoc meeting possibly around the 20th, maybe just before.
21st or 22nd.
Just for the
Chair.
deadline for the amendments
Sure.
being tabled. Go ahead, please, Carol.
Yeah, and it's just on the summed up notes. Again, I raised the issue of Article 13, a right to effective remedy.
Yeah.
I'd just like that recorded.
Okay, thank you. Okay, content to move on? Okay, thank you. So correspondence, members, I'm going to refer you to pages 208 to 211 of your pack for a summary of the committee correspondence, and I'm just going to draw your attention to a number of items. So 8.6, Common Frameworks Update, and you'll find this information on pages 282 to 284 of your pack. So the department has responded to the committee's recent correspondence regarding common frameworks. All 4 governments have now agreed the proposal of approximately 8 joint responsibility common frameworks from the programme, which can now proceed to ministerial sign-off. There are currently 30 common frameworks within the Common Framework Programme. 5 of these are bilateral agreements between the UK Government and the Northern Ireland Executive. So I'm going to seek your agreement to note this item and agree to write to the Department to ask that they keep the committee updated on progress as the Common Frameworks Programme moves forward towards completion, and to provide an oral briefing to the committee upon completion of the programme. Agreed?
Yep.
Okay.
Just on
Okay,
that one,
yep.
there's a date of the 18th of March. The shared aim remains to finalise as many common frameworks as possible by the revised target date of the 18th of March 2026. That was sent on the 16th.
2 days before.
2 days before, so it'd be interesting if they had waited the day after. They could have told us if they met their target date or not.
Okay, no, that's good.
I like that in the letter.
Okay, we'll highlight that in the letter, thank you. Okay, 8.7, a response for mayors to an informal invitation to brief the committee. You'll find this on pages 285 to 286 of the meeting pack. So the committee has received a response from mayors to our correspondence of the 13th of March this year regarding a possible oral briefing on immigration enforcement. In its response, mayors outlined that they are not the appropriate organisation to give evidence on matters relating to immigration enforcement, and that these issues sit wholly within the responsibility and authority of the Home Office. So just to advise members that the committee has sent correspondence to the Home Office and awaits a reply. So I'm just going to ask your agreement to note this item, but sorry, Carol, go ahead.
Yeah, Chair, the correspondence to mayors is either our letter wasn't clear or they're being disingenuous. We want that mayors are responsible for refugees until they get their asylum status in terms of housing and support and all the rest. It was relation to their supports here rather than them being responsible for immigration. That was my understanding.
No, I think you're right, Carol. Well, no, you're right, but I think it sort of speaks to the number of attempts we've had as a committee to get mayors in front of us in this space to talk about issues that we've had raised with us as constituents, MLAs, about people who are living in our areas in accommodation that's not fit for purpose on some occasions. So I do take your point, but I'm not sure what we can do really if they've turned down a number of invitations to come before committee. But we'll note it for now. Okay, can't move on then. Okay, so historical institutional abuse, I'm going to refer you to pages 303 to 306 of your pack, just to advise that the committee, that the department has responded to the committee's correspondence of the 27th of February this year in relation to the historical institutional abuse redress figures and contributions towards the cost of redress. So the HIA Redress Board closed to applications on the 2nd of April 2025, by which time it had received 5,496 applications. Payments have been received from the Good Shepherd Sisters, Bernardos, the De La Salle Order and the Diocese of Down and Connor in respective De La Salle run homes. So discussions have taken place with the Irish Church Missions, the Sisters of Nazareth and the Sisters of St. Louis. So want to seek your agreement to note this item and agree to write to the department to ask that they keep the committee updated and to arrange an oral briefing with departmental officials and the HIA Redress Board once this process is complete, and also to ask for a written update on the work of the independent facilitator. Sorry, we're still due that, are we?
Yes, we should expect that after Easter.
Oh, but we are getting that after Easter. Okay, so note the information and ask to be kept updated, but also to note that the independent facilitator's report is still due. Go ahead.
Well, the department is obviously aware of what figures and what sums of money it has received, and based on what we were talking earlier on about in the legislation, it'd be interesting to know if they have met that fair and meaningful criteria. We've been chasing these groups for a long time. I'm looking forward to us receiving the update at the information session, but we need to apply as much pressure as we can because they're taking us for fools.
Yeah, so the report from the independent facilitator, so the assistant clerk has just indicated there that we're expecting this after Easter. But I think that that's, once we get that, I would imagine that we'll probably want to invite him before committee to talk through the detail of that. But when did you get that update? Was that very recently?
So just after we met this
Okay,
morning,
so that
I
is-
spoke to the DALO and they're going to provide a written update on the
Okay.
work of the independent facilitator after Easter recess, and then once that update's received, then the committee can decide following that.
Could we provisionally book that information session now, even before we get it?
Could you? Yeah.
To the DALO chair, if the committee's agreed.
Yeah. Okay. Good time to move on then. Okay, so 8.15, so the First and Deputy First Minister, it's publication of the Northern Ireland Executive's response to the COVID-19 inquiry, Module 2 recommendations. So you'll find this on pages 307 to 310 of your pack. So just to advise, the committee has received a written ministerial statement from the First Minister and Deputy First Minister regarding the publication of the Executive's response to the COVID-19 inquiry, Module 2 report recommendations. So members are advised that this statement was issued to members on the 18th of March, and the committee will receive an oral briefing from departmental officials at its meeting on the 6th of May in response to the report. Anything to add to this at this stage? No? No? Okay. So just to seek your agreement to note this item then? Okay, so I'm going to ask the clerk to read other items onto the record. Thank you.
Item 8.2, Committee for Finance, report on the Administrative and Financial Provisions Bill. Item 8.3, TEO news release, Northern Ireland deserves its place on the global stage. Item 8.4 and 8.5, Legal Services, the 60th and the 61st reports of the Examiner of Statutory Rules. There are no rules for the attention of this committee. Item 8.8, First Minister and Deputy First Minister response to correspondence 6th of February on the implementation of the Armed Forces Covenant. Item 8.9, Committee for Communities, Data and Information Sharing. Item 8.10, Committee for Communities, Equality Impact Assessment and Cross-Departmental Cooperation. Item 8.11, Committee for Communities, Children's Services Cooperation Act NI 2015. Item 8.12, TEO news release, Junior Ministers in Brussels to strengthen relations and promote Northern Ireland on St Patrick's Day. Item 8.13, TEO news release, Northern Ireland is a place that is building something extraordinary, Deputy First Minister. Item 8.16, Hansard Report, Historical Clerical Child Abuse, Cross-Denominational Network of Survivors, Amnesty International UK, 11th of March 2026. Item 8.17 is Hansard Report, Programme for Government and Programme for Government Delivery Unit, TEO, dated the 11th of March 2026. Item 8.18, TEO news release, Deputy First Minister meets US President, and that concludes the list.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to pick up on the response from the First and Deputy First Minister to our letter around the Armed Forces Covenant. It basically says, thank you for your letter of the 6th of January 2026 asking that there will be no further delay in the implementation of the Armed Forces Covenant. As you will be aware, there is no agreed executive position on this issue. So I think that's quite disappointing, and I would have liked to maybe have heard from, a wee bit of exploratory work to see what's actually happening in the different departments on this. So I'm open to any suggestions of how we look at this further. Pat, so I'll take Pam in first because it was her suggestion. Timothy, to write. Go ahead, please.
I agree with you, Chair. It's very disappointing, although probably unsurprising, given the comments of the First Minister. I don't know what we do with this now. It would be appropriate to write to the different departments and actually ask for some feedback around the implementation. Given the importance, I just think it's a shame and disgrace that this attitude's been taken towards the Armed Forces Covenant, and the importance of it is just quite shameful.
Okay, Timothy, did you want to add?
Yeah, I think it exposes the nature of the so-called First Minister for all. Really is the First Minister of no alternative, based at the officers doing nothing. When Gordon came to the Veterans Roadshow in Ballymena, I think was it 4 weeks ago, he had some updates and things he was doing within his department. So there is departments are acting and taking forward and making progress on the back of the motion that came to the Assembly and was passed, but it is shameful, it's disappointing that we have the Executive Office can't agree a position, and on that basis it means nothing can move forward within TEO. So I do agree with Pam and yourself, Chair, that we write to the other departments just to see what they are doing and moving this issue forward, which means so much to many within our communities.
Deputy Chair, did you want to add?
Yeah, it was just as I agree with the members. The reality is that I think there is work going on in other departments, and it's it's unreasonable that it's down to individual ministers. A lead should be coming from the Executive Office, and that's the bottom line with this.
Okay, so are we agreed that we write to each department then?
Yep.
To ask them what they're doing in this space?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. The other suggestion, although we don't have any varies in this area, is to actually ask the Veterans Commissioner himself to maybe either give us a written briefing on how he feels that the Armed Forces Covenant could and should be delivered across the different departments, or even invite him to come before committee. Would that be something that...
One of the things that he was keen to see, or what come forward in the motion, was the liaison officer. So it'd be interesting to get an update when we are writing how many of them committees or how many ministers have put that in place. But I would be very supportive of bringing the Commissioner in front of us.
Okay, so can you maybe check whether we've any barriers to invite him? I suppose we can invite him, but I think he probably would want to.
Anyway,
Yeah, he's not responsible to us, but he may want the opportunity. Is that? Can I leave that with you, the committee team, to look at that?
That's fine, Chair.
Okay, we agreed. Anybody want to refer to any other matter in correspondence? No. Okay, we'll move on then. So draft forward work programme, I'm going to refer you to pages 344 to 346 of your pack for an updated forward work programme, and I'm going to ask the Assistant Clerk to talk through any changes.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously this is our last meeting before Easter recess. When we come back on the 15th of April, we'll have our visit to Prony in relation to the bill and access to records. Our first official meeting back will be on Wednesday the 22nd of April, but now after today we'll look at scheduling that ad hoc meeting about amendments for the bill, and we'll email members once those arrangements have been made.
Okay, thank you. So I'm wondering then, in terms of the trip to Prony, because I'm conscious some people may have been there before, in what regard are you taking a register of who will be attending then, so we can let them know in advance to expect?
So we'll be emailing members. The Prony have just confirmed the itinerary, so we just want to tweak it slightly.
Okay.
And then once we've confirmed that with officials there, then we can go out to members with an invite, and then people can let us know who and who can't attend.
Okay, is that all right? Yep. Okay, moving on then. Any other business members? Go ahead, please, Deputy Chair.
Just one item, Chair. I met this morning with the British Red Cross to discuss the lessons learned from the United Kingdom's response to the displacement of citizens from Ukraine. And as you know, there was a UK-wide scheme to deal with that. You may also be aware that I represent the Assembly at the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities. And the United Kingdom government has the responsibility for what's called the Register of Damages in Ukraine. So at the end of the war, when Russia is made to pay for all of the damage that has been done in Ukraine, the United Kingdom government has had responsibility for effectively drawing together all of the damages to every building, to every road, to every piece of infrastructure. But they've just introduced a further protocol to that, and that is in respect of individuals who were displaced across, in our case, the United Kingdom, and it allows for a claim category for citizens who were displaced to the United Kingdom. Problem is, the United Kingdom doesn't seem to have great records of the Ukrainians who came here, or indeed where they are since. Which is not surprising, unfortunately. But there is a substantial scheme being launched across all of the devolved areas of the United Kingdom to look for Ukrainians who have remained or may have been here, to allow them to apply. And there's a major social media toolkit available. I would like us to pass that on to the Executive Office and to ask them to take a proactive approach to advising people who were either here or remain here during the time when we hosted people from Ukraine, or continue to host people from Ukraine under the various schemes, to make them aware of the scheme that's available for compensation.
Okay, so sorry, just for bringing you in. So obviously all the members haven't seen that. You've kindly shared that with the Alliance MLA team. I'm wondering then, could you maybe share it with the there, and then they can distribute it, and then we'll make a decision on whether to send it to the Executive Office, just to follow procedure. Go ahead, please.
I see you've got a booklet. Is it possible to get a number?
That came from the British Red Cross. It's on their website. They just happened in a meeting today to provide that to me.
Just a query, Deputy Chair. So if individuals can claim from that scheme,
Yes.
is there opportunity for the government to also claim for the cost of the resettlement scheme that they have ran throughout the UK? Or is it just open to the individuals themselves?
Okay, the scheme is in two parts. The first part of the scheme is in respect of the claim for damages inside Ukraine, and that the United Kingdom government, under its international obligations, undertook to set up that register of damages to buildings and property and services and all of that across the state of Ukraine. They've introduced the second round, which is for those people who were displaced. I'm not aware that there's a scheme available for the United Kingdom or other European states that hosted or continue to host Ukrainian refugees, but I would not be surprised that will be a further round of compensation claims. All of which, unfortunately, is predicated on the ultimate resolution of the war and Russia being made to pay.
Yeah, that's grand.
Okay, thank you for that, Deputy Chair. Okay, members, as we've said there, date, time and place next meeting. Our next meeting will be in Proney on Wednesday the 15th of April. It'll be a committee visit, but our next formal meeting will be on Wednesday the 26th of April 2026 at 2 p.m. in this room, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.